An interesting question tackled early on in sleep research was, is dreaming limited to REM sleep? Technology like the polysomnography, brain scans, and self-reports have provided researchers plenty of opportunity to explore this. Remember from our sleeping brain lecture that brain activity is much lower during non-REM or deep sleep than it is during wakefulness. Thus, the brain is simply not able to produce and experience full-fledged dreams during non-REM. However, there is clear mental activity observed time to time during non-REM, something more accurately described as mentation. So yes, dreaming as defined only happens in REM sleep. But here are some of the distinctions. Sleep onset mentation. When first falling asleep, it's not unusual to experience brief hallucinations that lack other characters and are rather flat in emotion. The most common one is the sensation of falling. These are also called hypnagogic hallucinations. It is also not uncommon to experience brief dreamlike sensations for something procedural that you did that day, like the feeling of skiing or skating. Kids often enter REM immediately at sleep onset instead of N1 as adults do. Thus, kids more often experience sleep onset mentation. Non-REM mentation. Mentation is often found during non-REM sleep. This differs from full-fledged dreaming in that it more closely resembles dream fragments, and it is cognitive, so thought-based rather than emotion-based. It often reflects current reasonable concerns of the dreamer, like apprehension about a test or a loved one. Comparatively speaking, REM dreams are animated, dramatic, complex, bizarre, hallucinatory, delusional, emotion-based, and lengthy. Thus, to say that non-REM mentation is the same as REM dreaming is equivalent to saying jumping is the same as flying. Thus, we will answer this question with this qualifier. Although non-REM often contains segments of mentation, it does not contain full-fledged dreams. Another interesting dreaming question addressed by research is, when does dreaming begin? Most babies are pretty expressive sleepers. If we observe, we can see that during deep sleep, they twitch and jerk, they grunt and grimace, they make faces, and they smile. But are they dreaming? And if so, about what? There is ample evidence to assume that they do not. Certainly not the way we have distinguished dreaming from mentation. You may recall from our very first lecture in this class, infants experience three types of sleep: active sleep, AS, quiet sleep, QS, and indeterminate sleep, IS. IS is a mixture of both AS and QS, right? Polysomnography of their active sleep most closely resembles adults' REM sleep, including the rapid eye movements, but their brains are not yet capable of producing the same kind of brain waves that adult brains produce. Add to this the fact that dreaming is related to adequate language development. Remember, too, that dreams are highly associative. Babies are learning some very simple associations from experience. Think how quickly they learn that if they cry, a bottle will appear. But their neural networks are not nearly developed enough yet to produce plots. Furthermore, their frontal lobes are far from developed enough for the attention span and focus to construct such plots. Considering babies' limited pool of resources and their brain's immaturity, most neuroscientists think that they are actually dreamless for the first years of life. If anything, they may experience visual and sensation-based fragments, mentation in other words, about things with which they've had experience, like pooping, sucking, crying, and playing. However, it is possible that they may not even be doing that. David Folks, a leading researcher on children's sleep, believes that the role of active sleep in babies is not to induce dreams, but rather to create neural pathways necessary for developing language and expanding the child's knowledge. This is the leading theory because most experts believe that the infant brain is far too busy actively growing in this way to leave room for even mentation to form. At the ages of 2 to 4, when normal fears develop and imagination blossoms, the development of frightening imagery can commonly develop. Read nightmares. Still, though, we do not see evidence in their nightmares of the full breadth plots and narration that we use to distinguish dreaming from mentation. Even children at the ripe old age of 4, 5, and 6 typically describe mentations that are static and plain, with no characters that move or act, few emotions, and no memories. So technically, as we define dreams, kids do not begin to dream until about 7 or 8 years of age. Vivid dreams with structured plots and narratives set in at this age when language has developed to an adequate level. And importantly, around the same time, children develop a clear understanding of their own identity. Researchers think that self-awareness is necessary for the insertion of the self into dreams. In fact, the amount of self-knowledge a child possesses, her understanding, for instance, that she would be the same person even if she had a different name, or that she is the same person as she was when she was a baby, strongly correlates with the vibrancy and amount of plot structure in her dreams.